So, have you ever really stopped to think about who decides what's in fashion? For the longest time, a tiny group of editors basically held all the power. But today, the whole game has been flipped on its head. We've literally gone from the glossy pages of Vogue to independent writers on Substack. So let's get into this massive power shift, and I'm going to give you a little toolkit for spotting the difference between real fashion critique and just marketing.
Let's start with that big question. Who actually decides what you wear? I mean, is it the brands? Is it the magazines? Or is it maybe that one influencer you follow religiously on TikTok? Well, the real answer today is way more complex, and honestly, a lot more interesting than it's ever been.
Because, for decades, the answer was super simple. It was a small, very exclusive club of editors at a handful of major magazines. They were the ultimate authorities, the true gatekeepers of what was considered stylish.
Yeah, we're talking about the era of gatekeepers. This was a time when communication was completely top-down. You had these fashion Bibles, and they pretty much told the world what was cool, and everybody just listened.
And when you think about it, this power structure was kind of wild. Editors at places like Vogue and Harper's Bazaar weren't just reporting on trends, they were literally creating them. You know that front row at a fashion show? That wasn't just about getting a good view, it was a very clear physical symbol of who was in and who was out. The media arguably had way more power than the brands or even us, the consumers.
And then, well, the internet happened. Everything changed. The old, slow, monthly rhythm of the print world suddenly had to compete with the insane speed of real-time clicks. And just like that, the castle walls that the gatekeepers had built started to crumble.
You can really trace this whole evolution pretty clearly. After that dominant print age, the early 2000s gave us the very first fashion bloggers, people like the Sartorialist and Susie Bubble, who were giving instant opinions from outside the establishment. Then, social media just smashed the doors wide open. And that leads us to today and the creator economy, where one single trusted person can build their own media empire from their laptop. Power's been totally decentralized.
Which brings us to this latest and maybe the most important shift of all. The rise of what I'm calling the creator critic. We're now seeing these top-level journalists leaving those famous old magazines to start their own thing, usually a newsletter on a platform like Substack, so they can talk directly to their audience.
And it all comes down to two completely different business models. The old magazine model, it needed to appeal to the masses to sell tons of ads. But this new creator model, it's all about finding your niche and your expertise. The readers aren't just paying for articles, they're subscribing to a person's specific point of view. It's about monetizing trust, not just eyeballs. So why make the leap? Why leave a cushy job at a big-name magazine? Well, in one word, it's about freedom. It's the freedom to write what you really think without worrying about advertisers. It's financial independence. And it's that direct connection you get with an audience that's just as obsessed with your niche interest as you are. Okay, so with all these different voices out there now, how are we supposed to tell the difference between a real, thoughtful analysis and what's basically just a glorified ad? Let's build ourselves a little toolkit so we can learn to read between the lines. All right, take a look at these two sentences. Text A is pure hype, right? It's all about timeless elegance and stunning silhouettes. That's marketing language. But text B, that's analytical. It sees what the brand was trying to do, but then it questions if they actually pulled it off. One is selling you something, the other is analyzing it. Here's a simple way to break it down. A press release, or PR, is written by the brand itself. Its only job is to sell you something, so the tone is always going to be celebratory, and its huge blind spot is that it will never admit to any flaws. A real critique, though, comes from an independent writer. Its job is to analyze. The tone is more objective. Now, it has a blind spot, too. Sometimes critics can forget about the real-world commercial pressures brands are under. This brings us to a really important industry term you should know, puffery. That's when you're reading something that's dressed up to look like a real review, but it's all just empty praise. It's basically a promotion pretending to be an opinion, and it usually happens when there's a conflict of interest going on behind the scenes. And that leads us to the big, thorny, ethical question at the center of all this. I mean, think about it. If a magazine relies on millions of dollars in advertising from a huge brand like Chanel, can its review of the next Chanel show ever be truly honest? This fundamental conflict is exactly why so many great writers are going independent. So knowing all this, how can you become a smarter, more discerning reader of all things fashion? Here is a super simple toolkit that you can start using, like, right now. It's just a 3-step checklist. First, always check the source. Who actually wrote this piece? Second, analyze the tone. Is it all sunshine and rainbows, just stunning and innovative, or is there some actual balanced thought in there? And third, look for context. A good piece of criticism doesn't just describe the clothes. It tells you why they matter in the bigger picture.
Look, if you only take one thing away from all of this, let it be this right here. A press release is what the brand hopes you'll think. A real critique is the analysis of what it all actually means for the culture.
So, that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In this new world, where literally anyone can be a publisher and have a voice, the power has completely shifted. It's not about which gatekeepers you pay attention to anymore. It's about who you personally choose to trust.